All right, so today we're going to talk about photo corners, and specifically photo corners for shipping, for packing. Same methods by and large apply to photo corners for display purposes or storage, matting and storage, whatever. But for our purposes, what we're talking about is we have something that we want to put on something rigid in a what some people call a sandwich, or some people just call a simple portfolio. We're not boxing it in and doing some of that fancy stuff. We're basically going to take, say, an unmatted piece of paper, or sometimes it could even be a matted object, and we want to basically attach it to this oversized rigid board. I show a variation that is a little bit more user-friendly and faster, especially if you have high volume to do. This is the way to go. Even if I don't have a high volume, this is still the method I use. And for all this, we're using glassine because it's a very available, low-cost material. This is basically often going to get thrown away. It's not the nicest stuff. It's much nicer to work with a real paper, a Silver Safe, or a Permalife, or like a Renaissance paper. But this is the thing to be working with. So we're just going to cut a strip here. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and do as many things at once as we can. Rather than making individual corners with individual squares, we're basically going to fold this over. And, there's a degree of waste here, but frankly, it's like compared to the benefit, it's nothing. And so that gives us 4 layers. At this point, you can take a straight edge, make a cut, and then move it to get the width that you want. This will obviously be based on the size of the piece, how big a photo corner you need. What's nicer, much nicer, is to have some strips of scrap plywood around. What that does is just gives you, basically a visual of what you're going to end up with. And so we'll have multiple ones of these cut. And they just sit with a hole drilled and they just hang up on the wall. But basically the idea is you just hold this down, basically just cut it as it sits. You could use a weight, it might work a little nicer. Might be a little faster. Basically we pull that and we're left with a nifty strip that consists of 4 layers. And that's what we're going to use to fold a long series of corners that have little tongues to lead them ahead of the front edge of the photo corner. So on this, all we're doing is we're basically going to come in here, we're going to make a fold, and we're going to answer it with another fold that's parallel to it. And you notice here the one thing I'm not doing is going all the way into the corner. That's because the corner of works on paper, and especially photographs, is one of the easiest place to get it dinged. So I like to leave a little breathing room there. So you've got one little set of photo corners there. We're going to flip this. We're just basically going to repeat the process here. And it doesn't have to be all that exacting. There's really only one thing that it needs to be exacting about this whole process, and that is this fold right here. As long as these 2 lines are parallel to each other, you're going to end up with a 90-degree corner, and that's the key thing. So if in the process of repeating this I'm kind of wandering off a little bit like this, it's not the worst thing. I mean, it's nice to have them be nice and straight and consistent for when you trim them up, but truthfully it's not going to matter that much. So basically you take whatever material you have, do a long string of these till you run out of room, because if you're bothering to make these, you might as well make a bunch. And then when you get that all done, you're basically going to put them down, take a straight edge, and you've left enough room in between here that you have a little tongue that will stick out from the edge of the photo corner, which is a good thing. And I'll show you that by comparing it to what is traditionally done, which is how I was also trained in art school, whatever. And that is, each one of these photo corners would be made from a little square of paper that you've taken and you'd fold it in to have 4 layers. In this case, someone's made another strip that folds over, and then that's taped, which is interesting, not necessarily needed. And in particular, if you're going to do that, you would want to avoid having your pressure-sensitive material be anywhere near where the art could contact it. So I noticed on one of these others they actually set the tape back, and that's preferable if you're going to do that. The problem with this method, other than you're folding each individual piece as you go, whereas I could just do a series of 4, because each one of these, there's a set. There's 1 piece, 2 pieces. Very easy to keep track of where you're at, and also they're easier to actually use. When you are looking to put this on your tray or your palette or whatever, if you have one of these, you kind of have to choose well, where am I going with this? Where does that go? On the bottom, in the middle, whatever. And it's kind of fighting you because it's all at the same level. So it's a little more difficult than if you, with one of these other style, since the layers are, at different points, you can easily feed that in to where it goes on more easily. It sort of feeds itself on there, which is an advantage. So basically you get these on here and tape across them. The most basic way to do it would just be to do a straight piece of tape across this way, straight onto the board. A lot of these are going to be one-way things. If it's heavy, you may not want to put more strips. The thing about this is it's going to trash this board. If I wanted to have this more reusable, what I'd consider doing would be put packing tape here, usually clear packing tape, sort of around the edges of it, and then the blue tape will go on that and still be removable and reusable. So those are the basics, and we can go into some other detail at another time.